All right, super. So it's good to see some familiar faces in the crowd there and a lot of new faces too. I guess we'll just introduce ourselves briefly for those who don't know us. I'm Tiffanie Vlack. I'm the Associate Director for Academic Planning and Data Analytics at the School of Professional Development and Continuing in Professional and Online Education. That is a mouthful. And Diane, do you want to introduce yourself too?
Yep. My name is Diane Perillo. I work with Tiffany, and today I am her support person for this genius idea that she came up with and that we're very excited to share with everybody.
Awesome, thanks. So everybody, welcome to our presentation. We've got the power, how Power BI wins hearts with data-inspired decisions. In this session, we're just going to demonstrate how the course completions report in Power BI can be used to accomplish the following: student engagement, which would include various aspects of student advising and student success, which therefore ties into academic scheduling, enrollment projections, fiscal projections. Everything goes hand in hand, and we will show you how. But first, why did we need a course completions report? Fun fact, this report did not exist prior to fall 2024. There were a lot of tools within SVU reporting that had captured various aspects and combinations of student records data, including but not limited to names, Stony Brook ID, program info, students' GPA, their enrolled status, things of that nature. And there were a lot of other tools that captured aspects of course schedules and student registration information. SB reporting had reports where you could pull student course registrations by term, class schedules. PeopleSoft had student course histories, transcripts, master schedule reviews, enrollment reports, rattling off a bunch. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the variety of options that are available, and you probably utilize them on a regular basis. But we were still searching for a report that could combine all these ingredients for a student-centered and really academically focused view of all the relevant data. So we collaborated with DoIT, and essentially we created a brand new report. I have to give a shout out here to Augustine Rodriguez. He was truly instrumental in bringing this report into being, and Augie, you were a pleasure to work with through the whole process. So yes, clapping hands. So our recipe for success here is listing of students by program, plus the student records details, plus courses completed by a specific subject area equals perfection. The course completions report came to life, it won our hearts, and it resides in Power BI. And I don't know if there are any other Shakespeare fans in the house right now, but the bard himself might say, a report by any other name would smell as sweet. Titles and labels, they have their utility, but they're ultimately arbitrary, and it's the content of the report that matters most. The value of that report is going to remain unchanged regardless of the name we assign to it, but course completions made really good sense. It's Love Data Week. I had to get mushy somewhere. The end. Never used it before? Fear not. Can I just see with a quick show of hands or any other fun reaction emoji or in the chat how many people attending today might be totally new to this report? Maybe you didn't know it existed. Um, Maybe you've never run it before. Maybe you're just not comfy with it. Don't be shy. Ah, there we go. Yay. All right. That's good. I'm glad you're here. A couple of people. This is great because I've tailored this presentation a bit so that everybody walks away confident that they have the tools to go ahead and use this report on their own. This isn't a formal training by any means, but I'm just going to give a brief demo as to how to access and run this report. Just running through the breadcrumbs, you'll go to the Power BI home, which we've got a link here, and there's links everywhere for it. You'll go to the apps, click on there, and then within the apps, you'll go to the academic advising app. And then that'll bring you to a new screen. And within the academic standing category, you'll see course completions just a few rows down. So then from there, you are going to select your parameters. The term, of course, the semester that you wish to view. Student career, you can select graduate, undergraduate, both. You've got your program school, so select the appropriate school for the programs that you want to look at. You've got the academic plan, so you'll select the program plan or plans to be included. It can be one or multiple program plans. And then important part here, subject, you're just going to select one course designator to look at with this report. If you have students who might be taking classes in more than one subject area, you just have to run a separate report for each subject area. We've got helpful hints too. Helpful hint number one, depending on the Zoom settings of your own personal computer screen, you might need to scroll left and right just to be able to view and select all these parameter fields. If you're at like 100% Zoom, it's usually fine. But if you're like me and you're up to like 150%, because of bad eyes, these parameters might get a little sneaky. So just make sure you scroll back and forth so you can view everything. And helpful hint number two, you can select right from the drop-down menus, or you can actually start typing right into some of the parameter fields to generate your choices. This comes in as a really nice option for those times when you might have forgotten an exact program code, or you just don't want to scroll all the way. Next, you will run the report. So once you've selected your parameters, you'll just click on View Report here, and then wait a couple of moments. This report processes a whole lot of data. It might take a little bit longer than some others, but once it generates, it'll show, and you can go ahead and click on the Export button. I just kind of maximized it there. Click on the Export button, and then you'll click on Microsoft Excel to download it into an Excel spreadsheet. So what information does this report show to us? And don't worry, we will show you a real live version of this shortly. But first, I'll just run through the information that someone can view as soon as this beautiful report is generated. So you can tell I'm so excited about this. I love this report. The student records data is going to be inclusive of a lot of data. It's going to show you all of the eligible to enroll students for the program or programs that you chose, their name, their ID number, program plan, GPA. You'll be able to see their admit term, when they actually started the program, their last enrolled term, and of course, their enrolled status for the term that you're running the report. I want to draw some attention to stop outs here. This is the name that we at SPD have been using to describe students who aren't necessarily enrolled for a term. We want to show them some love. Our advisors have been easily able to identify these students and, based on the information in this report, engage with them in meaningful ways. And we'll have a little more on this later. You can also see whether a student has applied for graduation, whether they're registered in Sutra cohort classes or not. It's important for a number of areas, and any additional relevant student records info. Student records data is going to start in the first column. It continues way over until we reach the columns for courses which have been completed or are currently in progress by all of the individual students. Courses shown will be all-inclusive for the selected course subject designator, and courses shown for each student will indicate a number of possibilities. You're going to see successfully completed courses, so courses where maybe they earned an A or a B or other passing grades. Equivalent transfer courses will show, they'll be denoted as T for transfer. Incomplete courses, of course, they'll show with grades of I. And any courses that a student is currently in are considered in progress. They'll be denoted as IP. It's important to note that courses which have not been successfully completed, so maybe courses that students might have failed or withdrawn from, or courses that they haven't yet attempted, aren't in progress, those courses will show up as blank for that student. And finally, at the very bottom of the report, after the last student row, you will see the total number of completions and in-progress statuses per student course. This will essentially be a tally of course completions and in-progress statuses for the entire list of students. The course completions report is a really useful tool for advising and for planning purposes. It gives an at-a-glance view of all the eligible students in a given program, both enrolled and not enrolled, which courses in that particular subject designator the students have successfully completed or have in progress, and a grand total tally of those completions and in-progress courses for each given course. This report can be run for any academic program on campus. It was designed with everyone in mind, and it's of particular interest to, people in roles like program director, deans, advisors, chairs, assistants chairs, academic schedulers, departmental finance personnel, other related roles. This next slide, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Diane.
Thanks, Tiffany. I know Tiffany said she loves this report, but when Tiff brought this to my desk and said, hey, we have this thing, I could not believe all the amazing information that we're going to show you. This piece of the course and completion report, this is like the finished product. This is a pivot table with hidden fields that we can look at and say, this is our higher education program. We know that from this chart, we have 100 students that have already completed our 501 course. The way we designed our view of the master sheet, as I call it, we took into consideration all of the core classes. So in order to get the HEA degree, whether it's the AGC, the Advanced Graduate Certificate, or the full master's, you have to complete 501, 2, 3, 4, and 521, take a bunch of electives, and then come at the finish at 595. So it's important from an academic scheduling standpoint to say how many core courses do we need, because our goal is, student success and completion. And this is a great tool that tells us we know how many students have completed it. The other row, I could not get this out, so don't mind it, is the students that haven't completed. So we know 13 students still need to take 501, 10 still need to take 502, and so on. So from a planning standpoint, we can look at this in one way and say, okay, maybe we only offer one 501 class and try to get all the current students into this class. Or we open up 2 sections because we think we're going to have 20 to 40 brand new students, and we want everyone to start with 501. So from a scheduling standpoint, these are the conversations that we can start having. From a budget standpoint, you can also predict the revenue tail. How much revenue is in this current state? So at 113 students, which we'll show on the next slide, what's the revenue that this program can generate? Between now and say a year and a half to completion, we're looking at $946,000 of revenue that's still to come from this current subset. So you could make predictions to say, if we decide to keep 113 students flat for a couple of years, we know what we're going to generate. If we want to go to 120 and 150, you can make those predictors because this is telling you the course sequence. The reason why we chose HEA, our higher ed program, there's a lot of electives. So they're kind of scrunched. That's why we have in here, wait a minute. We have the elective course taken. We can say that we know 252 students have already taken electives. This means we still have 402 students that still need to take electives. So when we're scheduling, we might decide we're going to do summer heavy electives, or we might do spring heavy electives and then really focus on the cores in the fall or the summer. So our program director, Brian Kerr, he would look at this data and say to himself, how do I want to plot out the next year for the higher education program? And in theory, you could plot 2 years out because you can still use the data as continuous data. So we've used this. I'm showing you a very condensed pivot table that we take from the master file and tell it to pull information. Obviously, you can choose, there's options to take and remove from the pivot table, but I felt this was the most condensed to show you output. We're able to predict revenue, like I said, which is helpful, especially in the new economic framework. If you're looking at student headcount and credit hours, this is a great way to figure out your credit hours for the next 2 years. From an academic scheduling decision, we can decide today, do we want to offer HEA 504 only in the fall and spring for the next 2 years and never run it in the summer? What would that look like? These decisions also inform our enrollment team when they're talking to prospect, which are potential new students or current students. They might say, hey, Karen, I noticed you haven't taken 504. We're not going to offer it in the summer. So why don't you take HEA 531 instead? Because that's going to be offered in the summer. This way, we still keep you on the degree completion path. This is extremely important in the professional master space. Our enrollments, we don't have a long line of students that are looking to get into our undergraduate programs and our doctoral programs. We have professional master students who are typically adult learners that come back after, and they're looking for some type of career advancement. So they're getting the advanced graduate certificate, a few classes, or a master's in a different field that's more concentrated. So they're looking for, they could come in and out a lot faster. When you're in a 4-year undergrad, you're finishing in 4 or 5, or the PhD program. So our students are driven differently. So knowing where they are in the continuum of degree completion is extremely important. And I touched about the electives pattern. Okay. So our HEA student population, the other piece of information that we can draw from the demonstration we're going to show you later of the big file, we know that there's 113 unique students. And when we say that, that means individuals. We have 113 individual higher ed students that are claimed higher ed students in our program. We also know of that 113, they might take more than 1 or 2 classes. So that is why it's important to understand the course history of the student, because you just can't say, well, we have 10 more students left. It's possible students are taking more than 1 class. This particular degree program attracts a GSP, which is a student that's not matriculated, meaning they don't show up because their code isn't an HEA student. But we know we have 13 students that come in and out and take classes. We put those students into our report because we want to know what classes they've completed, because ultimately we want to move them towards degree completion, whether it's the advanced graduate certificate or the full master's. And as Tiffanie said, we talk about our stopouts. At the point in time we ran this report, we had 20 students that stopped the program. So this triggers Maria over in our enrollment team to call these people and find out, why did you stop? And we have notes on those students. We like to call it, is it a hot lead? Are they coming back in a semester, or are they cold? Meaning, were they just a GSP student that said, I just wanted to take HEA 501. I'm good. I don't want to continue. Or is someone, I just got a new job. I'll come back in the spring. So we keep those notes. So when we're having conversations and courses, we want to make sure those students are still getting the messaging. Those 20 students are extremely important to us. So an overall view of our higher ed program, we have 146 potential unique students. So that 113 has grown because the mix of students is very different. And being able to see it all on one Excel spreadsheet allows us to target our conversations to the students and have meaningful conversations. We did this at the bottom. You can do some out-year planning. So for academic year 26-27, we can plan and say, we think we're going to get 20 new students, 45 new students in the fall, 35 new students in the spring, but we have to keep in mind 50 students are graduating. So we're adding to our 146, but we're taking out those that are graduating, because the report that we're going to show you, like the big report, it indicates when students are applying for graduation. So you can know before you run your graduation rosters and say how many people are coming, the course and completion report will pick it up based on student actions. But it's important, especially in our space. If we have 50 students graduating, we need 50 plus. We have to make sure that we're recruiting not 10, we need 50 or 60 students to make up the gap. So how we use this data, as I talked about, we track the stopouts and reduce the population. I must talk about the impact. We have an impact slide, so I'll wait. We know our students, and we can better understand the student mix because of this report. We use it as a predictor for new enrollment. And then we can use this, our program directors, to decide what core courses. So our HRM program is 10 classes and you can take them in any order, but you have to take all 10 to graduate. So there's really no fanciness that goes around. But in the higher ed space, we have so many classes because it's a big industry of choices. You can be academic affairs, student affairs, government relations, that we have to offer a wide variety for our students. But we could run and see who's taken what class, how often are they being offered, and maybe we want to take a class that's on the shelf and say, we haven't offered this one in 3 years, let's put this one out because all the students have completed this. The other reason we're trying to remove barriers from students. We don't want students to get here, go through their courses and say, I don't have a class to take. All the classes aren't here. So we can use this to schedule and allow our students to complete. We also use this to recruit and ensure we're capturing our graduating students. When we first ran the report, we had students that were eligible to graduate, but they had incompletes on their record. And it was a recent incomplete. It was a paper that wasn't done. So we got on the phone and we called them and we said, hey, you are so close. You just need to, how do we help you? And we've turned those incompletes into grades because everyone knows if an incomplete sits long enough on a transcript, it becomes a W and an F, or it becomes an F, and you don't want that. So we try to reduce our barriers. All right, Tiff, can you unshare and then I'll show you the report? I put on the thing, it's like a blue link. It's not clickable because we're not sharing the report because it's a live report, but I have for you what the course and completion report looks like. So this is the master file that Tiffanie was talking about with all the, indicators, all the information that you can get, the semester, the non-sutra, you can sort. So right now I'm going to sort, hopefully it's not sorting for me. All right. Enrolled and not enrolled, you can see a lot of information. The last term a student was here. This is important because if someone hasn't been here for 3 years, they're more likely than not going to come back, but we still make the phone call. Maybe they forgot about us. Life happens. We all have life that we might say, you know what, I didn't realize I needed one class. I'm going to sign up. So we convert them into students. But I'm just going to scroll to the bottom to show here are all our classes, all this beautiful information. And then if you were to look in here and open this up, you could see the progress. So it's choppy because you're going to have blank spaces, obviously, if they didn't take a course. And then if it is a course, it tells you the semester and the grade of the student. So you can look here, you can eyeball it and say, oh, this is the pattern I've seen based off here, or you can run it into a pivot table, which is what we showed on the spreadsheet. The other beautiful thing this report does, it adds everything at the bottom. So you don't have to do the math. The minute you run it, it tells you total completion rate, which is important. And another fun thing, it's extremely important to make sure you know what date you ran your report. So for us, we wait until after day 15, last day that students can't drop anymore. We run the report the next day because that's telling us our summer spring population, our new stop outs that we have to look at, and it tells us GPAs of the student. So from an academic standing standpoint, if we have a student that has, in jeopardy, we can have that conversation with them now because it's only the middle of our online semester and say, hey, Tiffanie, how's it going? Are there, any ways we can help you have the faculty member reach out to them more? Because they might just need an extra B on a paper to get that A- that helps them on their GPA instead of not reaching out to them where they end up with a C-, and then they could have like a 2.2 or 2.1, and then they go through an academic standing. So what I love about this is there's so much information that you can use it and play around with this. And I will tell you, the first time Andy, Tiffanie, and I sat with this, we played around for hours. We decided it does not come this way in your course sequence. We move things around. We put our academic advisor hat on and say, what makes the most sense if we were to advise a student? Obviously, you need cores for prereq, so those are your most important classes. And what is the last class you need? You can even take this information and tally it per student to say, oh, Sean still needs 3 classes. What 3 classes? And Sean takes fall, summer, and spring. Let's make sure those 3 classes are on the book so we can get Sean his degree and have him finish the program. This is what we talked about, so I'm not going to go into more detail, but it's here and there's lots of other information behind it. but I'm going to hand it back to Tiffanie. I don't know how much time we have left, but I want to talk about the impact. Hi,
Yes, we
thank
just
you.
have a couple minutes and all right. Impact.
Impact.
This report has had tremendous impact on various academic operations within the department. By using this report in strategic ways, we've reduced enrollment barriers for students, as Diane mentioned. We've been having fewer courses canceled, which reduces any negative impact that cancellations have on students. More meaningful data is available for our graduate program directors. So it helps us to refine that schedule planning from its earliest stages to right before the start of registration and beyond. We've improved student services by connecting with our students more often. Advisors have a very comprehensive view of who their students are and where they're at in terms of their degree progress at any time by using this report. And the report will change based on when it's run. So program directors, advisors can use this regularly to quickly determine which students they need to touch base with, which courses they should be offering to those students. And I will say it's been really uplifting to hear from our advisement team about how so many students are really happy to have that personal connection and to be receiving those outreach efforts. We, as Diane mentioned, also created that communication pipeline supporting students who had incompletes on their transcripts. We were able to follow up with them early in the process and encourage successful completion of those courses. So just something quick to note, this report, it's an invaluable tool, but whenever individual student advising is taking place, our advisors do pull up that student's individual course history or transcript because the course completions report may not tell the whole story for every student. Another impact, we've reduced our stop out population. For example, on that last slide, the fall 2025 HEA program stop out population was 20, but I believe that was reduced from closer to 40 previously. So we could see it's made a huge difference in getting these students to come back. But we also know a lot more about our stop out students because of these outreach efforts. We've also experienced much stronger relationships between program directors and our enrollment services and student engagement team because we have this new abundance of information, we have transparency, and we have development of shared goals. This report really makes the data accessible, approachable, and meaningful to the intended audiences. And we started working more closely together than ever before. We've been hosting annual academic planning meetings. And, we review the data together, we discuss current trends, we facilitate the out-year planning. And last point, to the right, just wanted to highlight some information regarding our registrations and class sections across the programs. You'll see that leading up to and including fall 2024, so pre-course completions report, we offered a lot of sections across all our programs. And the amount of sections offered didn't always change drastically by semester, even when our registrations were in decline. So to give some background, sometimes we'd be running multiple classes that were far less than full. We'd have to be canceling classes, leaving affected students scrambling. We didn't want to do that anymore. Once we had access to this report and started using it, things shifted. And starting with the spring 2025 semester, we were able to start making some changes. We reduced the number of sections offered, and moving forward, we were able to plan much more thoughtfully and much earlier in the scheduling cycles. Just to highlight some specific data, fall 24 and fall 25 registrations were neck and neck at 1981 on this particular date, about September 15th from year to year. But we actually were offering 11 fewer sections in fall 25. Another point we can consider is between spring 24 and spring 26. There's a big difference. As of just a few days ago, the registrations were down 150. If you were to equate that to simply removing classes from our schedule, that would come out to about 6 classes at an average of 25 registrations each. But the reality is that we're actually offering 26 fewer sections. So fewer sections offered overall, but much healthier registrations within those course sections. And just wanted to share with everybody how positive this report has been for us. We hope that it'll lead to positive effects for all the programs and areas that you are involved in. Thank you for attending. Now you've got the power. And I know we're pretty much out of time, but feel free to throw comments in the chat, or if you have any last minute questions, I'm happy to stay on if needed.
Thank you both.